But I said to them, when you're in your cell, and let's hope you don't have this reflection time again, I want you to think of yourself as a monk. You know, you've got a paper, a pencil, a glass of water, and you're going to reflect. And you can ask God, or you can ask anybody you want a question. And then you have to wait for the answer. And you'll get the answer.
Amos Madra.
Hello and a warm welcome. I'm joined by author, coach, and just generally an amazing person, Christel Cowdrey. Christel, a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. You don't cease to surprise me of all the amazing things that you do. There's always something new. You're always at the core helping people. And I think generally you're just somebody who cares for people. You've got such empathy and such warm feelings towards others that you tend to put them first. And, we find ourselves here talking today. And I think the key theme of today's interview is predominantly about you helping people and those in need, and especially during betrayal as well. So there's so much for us to get into. Firstly, a warm welcome to you.
Oh, you're so kind. You're so sweet. So lovely to see your face. It's always so smiley as well. You say I'm smiley. You're pretty smiley. Yeah. So I've been part of a chaplaincy team. So I've had the privilege, and I say it is a privilege because I love children. I've always loved children. To find out that I was infertile was such an extraordinary blow because our sons are IVF, first attempt, miraculously delivered, fit and well. But I had always had empathy for children. I think they're born perfect. I think we're all born perfect. I mean, I think it is a trial and tribulation if you're the child of violence or attack, or because the mother's cortisol goes straight into the body of the child, or if you're born with an AIDS patient or something like that, you arrive with different challenges. That said, all children are perfect, and it's the adults that mess it up. And betrayal, for me, the betrayal starts that young. And I think maybe the IVF has made me so grateful. I mean, I'm grateful every day. I've got two hilarious boys and they're amazing. And they teach me something. And, I don't know if I told you last time, but they've got me on Fine France. And if I'm out somewhere, they're like, "How are you having a good time out of 10?" So they're very lovely and very caring, and arrived on my birthday with flowers as a surprise. And I just don't really, there's no sort of training for parenting. There is in the church more and more, but there isn't really for all of us out there. And there's a great deal of entitlement. So if you're brought up with a shouting father and mother who do this as their recreation, there's no danger, but they just are very loud, and you're a small child, it's very scary. If you have a parent that's alcoholic or two, it's very scary. You can be lying there listening to your sibling being shouted and screamed at and be afraid to intervene. All these things, if you're thrown on the street, as I've learned, one boy was at 8 years of age trying to find his grandparents' home. It's actually unforgivable. It beggars belief, really. And then there are children who are just sort of shunted from place to place in the care system. And so I think betrayal starts very young. And there's a book I'm working on now where I've asked people to contribute from all walks of life, and not necessarily because it's meant to be intrusive, but really about the unconscious years their parents spent parenting them, and the generational pressures, the rituals, the creed, the disputes. There's a friend of mine, she was first a surgeon, then a lawyer, now she's a mediator, and she's the only one in England that I've ever known who goes in and mediates on honor killings when a child's second generation British, but of a culture that is very strict. And with all this sort of disarray now in the world, there was a thing I saw where the child was asked whether Israeli or Palestinian, and she just said, "I'm hungry." And that kind of sums it up. That we need to pray and never stop praying, but we also need to reach out without entitlement of who we are and who we think we are and whether our religion's better than somebody else's, and understand that everybody is a myriad. You know, when I look at you, I know that behind your smile and behind your brilliance, there's a myriad of emotion, and there's a lot of history in your life and family, and you know, and there's lots of adversities you face, because I have, and we all have, and all those challenges we hide. And I think what really woke me up to this was, apart from being the middle child, where, you know, the oldest has the pressure, the youngest has the babying, and the middle one's got to get on with it, and the parents are like, phew, we did the first one, we can chill out with the second. And I think I mediated quite a lot of my parents' marriage. You know, I'd hear them and I'd go down with a notebook, A4 pad and pen, and I'd say, okay, why are you so cross? And why are you so cross? And they were never abusive, but they were having intense conversations about their life. And I think I was the first person in the Royal Courts of Justice to mediate between parents. And I was allowed. I wrote about it in my book. But this current book is about asking people to contribute and seeing whether anything I've written triggers them. And it's not a very long page. It's about 16 pages, but as you scroll, you know, it's not that long. And there's some pretty pictures, babies and lovely, lovely pictures, but young children. But it's really to trigger a memory or a thought, so that when we consider, because we all do, what will we be like as parents? And do we want to be parents? Or do we never want to have a child? Then whatever comes out of that, and it doesn't have to be negative, it can be positive. And because it's written anonymously, people can go quite deep. You know, they put their gender, they put their age, their profession, their passion, their culture, their country they're born in, whatever it is, and they then write. A lot of people go very deep because they know it's anonymous, and other people just write a sentence or a paragraph, and some have written 12 pages. And I call them golden nuggets, because the idea of the book is to share those nuggets with people to serve others, so that somebody can say, oh gosh, I know exactly, I resonate with that. Because we've got to do something, you know. And I've been working in a chaplaincy team at a prison, at a young offenders prison, and they're young, 20, you know, 22, 25. They're lovely, lovely human beings. The crimes are obviously quite serious, but when you talk to them, and I've encouraged them to write, I was really compelled. They found out I was a writer, and so I whizzed over to TK Maxx and bought loads of notebooks, and then asked permission to see whether I could bring them in, because I don't want to be looking like I'm spoiling them with gifts. But I said to them, when you're in your cell, and let's hope you don't have this reflection time again, I want you to think of yourself as a monk. You know, you got a paper, a pencil, your glass of water, and you're going to reflect. And you can ask God, or you can ask anybody you want a question, and then you have to wait for the answer, and you'll get the answer, and then you write it down. Or you write down, one of them is an amazing rapper, so he's written raps, and he gets on the piano when we go over there. And these young people don't get anything else. They get the chaplaincy, that's it, you know. And often the parents and the families they're ashamed, so they leave them there and don't really communicate very well. Others are very lucky, they're very loved. But anyway, so I've been encouraging them. I go once a week with a team, and it's a very strict place. It's the most locked place, I think, in the country, and it's big, and but somehow I don't feel worried at all there. And, you know, I worry about what they're going to do when they get out, if the parents don't want to know them. And there's a whole contingency system that's supporting them if they're willing to share, because they're nervous. They're intimidated. They think no one loves them. They think once a criminal, always a criminal, you know. And often there's apparently a thing called the Black Mercedes troops or something. And they come out, and they know when these young people are coming out on parole, and they wait, and they say, you've got nowhere to go, matey, come with us. And then they start a much more, there's greater money in distributing things, and they're in part of a gang again. And they know that gang culture, and, you know, gang culture exists in schools, doesn't it? I mean, so it's bound to exist there too. So I get sad because I think it's easier to love a child if you're going to have a child, and it takes a tribe to bring up a child. So you're reliant on school, teachers, family, and everything else, aren't you? And it's much easier than mending a broken adult.
Absolutely.
And when I look at you, I know there's more. There's so much more, and there's much more. And I think the biggest, best thing I ever did was learn to become an accredited mediator. Because when you're a mediator, you matter not. You're not of interest. You're there saying you're safe, it's confidential, you have no judgment. And the mediator now can go all the way to the court to settle and doesn't need an advocate of law. And when somebody realizes that there's no judgment, they really don't need my advice. I could be 885 and had all those years in wisdom, but they often smarter. They know themselves, their authentic selves, and they don't need advice. If they're permitted to open up and be really secure, because we all fear being rejected, then they know what they need to do. And you just say to them, tell me more about that. Did you say that, or did I misunderstand that? When did that happen? That's interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about that? It's all that's needed. It's amazing. And it's so amazing that now mediation has become legislated. So you can't throw writ at someone. You have to be offered mediation. And nearly all the top mediators, and we're talking UN, 54 years at the bar, they're mediating 9 nations, United Nations, and they've come out of law where they have to make a judgment. They have to go on a trajectory of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then get to a point. And they've come out and they're doing mediation instead. So it's one of the best things I did was to completely leave myself behind, because nothing to do with me. It's not about my personal experience or what my thoughts are, or it's nothing to do with the mediator. It's so amazing. I know it sounds silly, but I had people screaming at me, what do you mean you said you think they're indignant? Did they ever hear I didn't hear that word. Who do you think you are, making up words that this person hasn't said? You're only allowed to repeat what they say. It was tough. It's amazing, though. Anyway, here I am chatting away too much. Again.
Not at all, Christel, not at all. There's so much to unpack from what you just said. And I think it's incredible that there are people like yourself who don't give up on society, to those who have been rejected, who have been left by the wayside, that someone like yourself will still come and say, be a channel, be the bridge to give them hope, to give them, to know that whatever they've done, it's never too late. They can still redeem themselves. They can still do all that they've always wanted to do, be all that they can be. And, kudos to you for doing that. And, we only wish there were more people like yourself. Now, when I think about, say, you mentioned there, you could be 800 years old and it still wouldn't be about yourself. It's about them, which is very true. Somebody once said we live in an age where it's not so much about the information, it's about asking the right questions, especially with AI and everything else that's at our fingertips. We can get all the information that we need. What we need to learn to do is to ask the right questions. Now, when I think of, I'm trying to piece all this together. When I think about the scenario with these young offenders and how they found themselves in that place, how can we support them and their families in perhaps getting them to, maybe more so their families, to get them to think in a different sort of way? How can we renew their way of thinking? Because what led to that situation is the way that they thought, but how can we help them to transform that thinking without being patronizing or without being controlling, in the sense, and to give them that freedom to change, to have that metamorphosis and to find that, that promised land that you've spoken so eloquently about?
Well, I mean, I was very lucky. I was very loved. I certainly wasn't the favorite. I was a bit of a disruptor, I think, probably. And it was one of the compliments I got quite recently from a business colleague. Oh, you're such a disruptor. Well, good, because I don't want to follow the crowd and be intimidated by not following the crowd, because that often happens. You stick your head above a parapet and you're different. I think these young people, I see that as betrayal. I mean, adult betrayal is different because we're in charge of how we teach people to treat us. And we have to have some self-esteem and love ourselves first and give ourselves a little bit of empathy and little emotional the castle walls around us, because we know that, otherwise, particularly if we've been hurt, emotionally abused, whatever it is, that we can recognize conflict more quickly than we can recognize anything else. So what we're doing is we're ready for the next fight, next argument, how we save ourselves to move out of that. I mean, I work on Alpha, which is an amazing thing. And a lot of the people that are on it have a church faith, but they are still very curious about whether or not they really feel loved in the world. I think we have to change. With these young people, they have to know that they're not being judged, that they're lovable, that there are people out there that aren't their family who will spend time with them. And there was a pastor, he said to me, we don't need people in pointy buildings in churches per se anymore. We need people on the street. We need people out there saying, or friends, how are you doing? Are you okay? I think it's reaching out to everybody. And the book that they're contributing to, all these young men are going to contribute to, I've also asked the team to contribute to, so that they feel on the same level. They're on the same level. I'm going to call it Wisdom is Costly, because I think we all have wisdom, and it is costly. We have our adversities and we have to challenge them, but then once we've addressed the fact that we were wrong there, we've got to forgive ourselves, and maybe releasing it. I think forgiveness is a big thing. Learning to forgive is a big thing, because we then, I think it was Nelson Mandela said, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies, from it. We die from it. They know now that every disease and illness has a profile that's attached to heartache or something that happened. The body holds the score, in other words, of what we've been through, and we can release it. And I was talking to some people who've been through the war and war children, and they think, oh, what on earth is all this society's nonsense about mental health? But they don't understand. We haven't got marriages that last forever anymore. In fact, people are not getting married for that reason. Oh, well, it's normal. We can get divorced and marry again. And they don't have the same values. There's no prayer in schools anymore. There's there's sort of free sex. You want to go out and have sex. There's abortion rights, and there's this, and there's, and it goes on. And so we've got freedom of, free will. We can do what we like with our lives, and often that ends us in a bit of a disastrous predicament, because we're not so clever. We need each other, and we need community. And I think the thing with boys is they're kind of blown away that anyone wants to spend time with them. It's not a paid thing. There are loads of people doing this, and it's actually really rewarding when you can turn around someone and say, carry on with that course. When you come out of here, you can be a landscape gardener. You can write about your experience. You can start talking about it on a stage somewhere. Your life's your oyster. You can create this. And you've come through this already. You're incredibly strong. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, this thing about wokeism is about supporting minority groups. It's about us saying, it's okay, whoever you are, we don't judge you. But then someone else was saying that there are young children who want to be boys or girls under the age of 16, which is meant to be the adult age. You can't go on an aircraft as a very young person under 16. I don't think you can fly alone as a 15-year-old, but you're allowed to change gender. And it's very, very difficult because the parents are being told, well, do you want your child to commit suicide? You know, we're with them if they want to change. It's very skewed. You know, we need more love and we need more acceptance of one another. And we need professional people to come and give that support. And they are trying, and they do it. Everyone has value. Every single one has value. Even these young men who I talk to, they all have something unique that they can create their life with. But it's when they come out of that, because 3 or 4 will return, 3 out of 4. And it's also a broken system because it's so expensive to keep them there. But if they don't have a family, they've got nowhere to sleep. And there they get food, and they get peace and quiet, and they get a bed and a shower and clothes. So it becomes a sort of lifestyle almost, until they can be freed from that. It's very sad, because I didn't think I was going to talk so much about betrayal of the young, but that, I think, is betrayal of the young. You know, whatever heinous crimes or heinous crimes they committed, they were once completely loving and lovable, and something got in their way and made them defend and got them afraid and pick up a knife or gang culture, whatever it is. They didn't start out like that. They didn't get the security which every child should have when you batten down the hatches in your home at night, that they're safe. Then go to sleep, have a bedtime story, have a bath, and go to sleep. You don't have to be rich. You know, it's not about the perishable things in life. It's about the imperishable things. It's about caring. And, you know, I remember one of my boys had a friend over to stay, and he hadn't brushed his teeth. He wouldn't brush his teeth. He was with me for 2 nights with the boys, having a sleepovers, you know. And when his mother came to pick him up, I said, oh, there's a bit of a problem. He's not going to have a girlfriend quite for a long time, I don't think. He said, why? I said, well, I don't want to tell on you, but you've got to brush your teeth. No one's going to kiss you. Let me tell you right now, your teeth are going to fall out. You're not going to, no one's going to kiss. She said to me, he's never stopped brushing them. You know, he was about 6. And my boys, I wrote about it on LinkedIn as an article about my boys. They were so loud, and they were wrestling, and they never hurt each other, but they were really loud. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have a gin and tonic soon to calm myself down. So what I did was I got them, drew a bath for each, and I put a whole bottle of that matey bubble bath in each. We had 2 bathrooms, okay, 2 baths, as it happened. And I put tea lights around the bath, and I lit the tea lights, and then I put a kitchen timer on each bath. And I said, guys, you've got to stop the noise. It's just unbelievable. You've got a punishment. And they all looked at each other as if to say, really? You know. So I said, yeah. And they said, what is it? And I said, you both got to get in that. You're in that bath. You're in that bath. And you're not allowed to speak for 20 minutes. You've got to stay in the bath. And I lit all the tea candles, the tea lights. And they were about 7, I suppose. And they were fine. They weren't going to drown, you know. And I said, I'm going to go and get myself something to drink. And I'm going to wait here for 20 minutes with sip my drink. And you're going to be very quiet until the tea light rings, you know. And then you're allowed to get out. And you can talk again and chat and do whatever you like. So they laughed at each other. They looked at me as if to say, some disciplinarian. Got in the bath, and they stayed in for 20 minutes. And at the end of it, they came out and they said, we're really sorry, Mummy. We're so loud. We try not to be so loud again. But the sweetest bit was they had a friend to stay. It wasn't the one who wouldn't brush his teeth. There was another one, and he got very distressed about staying the night, missing his mummy. And one of my boys said, would you like a bath? We're going to light some tea lights, put some matey bubbles, and you can have 20 minutes all on your own. You'll be really fine after that. I thought that was quite sweet. So I think it's teaching, you know. A friend of mine said, oh, my daughter doesn't like me. I wouldn't let her have a sweetie at bedtime, but I'd let her have a chocolate. I said, why don't you let her choose? One's got much sugar as the other. She said, well, I didn't think it did. I thought chocolate was better. And I thought, you know, it just needs time and love and commitment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Absolutely. Time, love, and commitment. And
Yeah.
that's the crux of it, really, isn't it? And I think we tend to get selfish, and a lot of the problems at the core root, it's how much time, love, and commitment are we willing to give to others?
Yeah, and I think I think it's that feeling of safety, you can feel unsafe in a shoebox, with grills all around you. It doesn't matter. It's a sort of innate feeling of security and knowing that, when you're a child, gosh, it should be a given, and sadly it's not. And I do think betrayal when you're older can stem from that, because you're seeking conflict, you're recognizing conflict, you're ready to defend yourself, you're ready to fight or flight or fright. And you almost seek out the conflict you're expecting. And but when you're an adult, you've got to say, okay, I need to protect myself from this. This is a red flag, and I'm being betrayed. And this is my decision to take as to whether I'm going to put up with it or not. And however much I love this person, this relationship, this is ultimately is abusive, emotionally abusive. Because people stay in relationships because they've got children, or they've got no confidence, or they've got a very dominant partner because they've had that domination as a child, and that's what they do their whole lives, is they follow the same thing. And when I'm coaching, I was listening, one of the people I was coaching, she said she'd had 7 different coaches, and one was Cam's because she'd been suicidal. And she was telling me about how it works. And often there is a set system. And each point, you go from 1, they cover all that, to number 2, they cover all that. And they go through the bullet points on the theory system. And then they might label you as having something wrong there. And they might call you something else there, another title. And the thing about depression or suicidal thinking is 83% of the world have to think about it. It's certainly not unique, sadly. But the thing about it is it's not permanent. People, I know it sounds silly, but somebody said to me, what suicidal young don't realize is that when they jump off the bridge, that's it. They don't really think it's gone. They're going forever. I know it sounds silly, but they're in such a state of flux and heartache. They don't really consider what they're thinking and doing when they're cutting themselves or hurting themselves. So that's what's such a shame. But the labeling of someone, you're bipolar. Well, actually, maybe you're not bipolar. Maybe you do have issues that can be managed. Maybe you don't have to be like this for the rest of your life. I mean, most people that are caring for others have had some challenges. They're not coming from everybody has challenges. Everybody has upset and heartache and mismanagement, and bullying is rife. It's just humanity is tricky, particularly in the young peer groups. And the most of the people that I know that are really in that field are compassionate because they didn't get the compassion themselves. They want to love people, even if it's for a minute, because they know that, it changes the day for them. Like if I say you've got a gorgeous face and a beautiful smile, you're going to feel good. Aren't you? I mean, it's true. Great teeth. How do you get so white?
Oh, stop it, Christel.
I'm not flirting with you. I'm just saying teeth are very white. My boys have got white teeth, and they pay. It's so expensive. They said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "Can I have a teeth whitening?" Oh my goodness! Do you know? But no. So I don't think it takes much. I think we're very entitled and self-centered. And the thing about religion, I feel really strongly about, because cross-culture is everything to me. Because I was Swedish and white. I wasn't Chinese, eating with chopsticks. I wasn't African. I wasn't Muslim, praying on my knees to Allah. I wasn't, facing Mecca. I wasn't complicated. I was a Swede, Nordic, and we're pretty straightforward. people, and we're quite direct. And I was bullied just because I was different and I wasn't part of the gang. And my greatest friends were a family of Japanese that moved in quite near us for a couple of years, and I learned Japanese because the mother was teaching the children not to forget. Well, I say I learned Japanese, I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I learned child Japanese. Like I'd say, can pick you up is, can you pick me up, mummy, is dako, and gohan is food. And, you know, I learned various things that were childlike, because they have the formal and informal, like the vous and the tu in French, or we had in Sweden as well. And I loved being with them, and I loved learning their culture. And in fact, there was a funny moment. I went for dinner there. I'm digressing now. And I was quite young, and they all burped after dinner. Can you imagine? And that was meant to tell the host the food was yummy. I went home and did that. I was nearly thrown into the gulf. Yes, it is meant to be a compliment to the chef. So I was always fascinated by other cultures, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was a Mormon. I mean, the Mormons write their own Bible. They've got Shakespeare in there.
Yeah.
Amazing. But they used to have family meetings. I thought this was amazing. The whole family would sit together and they'd ask each other's questions, tell each other when they were fed up with something, and they talked to each other. And there was no hierarchy in that moment. You know, they had to go to bed at the right time and brush their teeth and have a bath or shower or whatever, but there was no hierarchy. There was respect. And I think there's a problem with that within different cultures, and that's why I love cross-cultural mediation.
And that's what makes you who you are, Christel, because it's, you know, just embracing these different cultures and picking the best in everything and wanting to share that with people. And the fact that you're now working to put this book together, this is something that's really amazing. We've already come to the end of the interview. Before we finish, I just want you to, because I know you offer so much wisdom on your social media, there's always a plethora of wise words coming from you. So just for the audience, I want them to be able to connect with you and then to learn more about this mediation work that you're doing. And then, of course, we've got this book coming out. Your books already are published with Cranthorpe Miller. So there's so much that we can learn and share. So if you can just give us your social media and, of course, the work that you'll be doing in the near future.
Well, if anybody wants to write, I'm very happy if they contact me on Facebook. I can open that. At the moment, it's only friends, but if they follow me and I see that, I'll see that. Also, I'm Mummy Advice. The boys put me on TikTok as Mummy Advice. My first post went to so many thousand, I was blown away. And they then said I had to do a post a day. Well, I couldn't keep it up, but I am on there, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I don't think I'm on Twitter anymore, but I'm really happy if anyone wants to reach out. I've got one funny story. You just reminded me, I went to this place of prayer with all these Indians. I had an Indian lawyer, and I was the only whitey in the whole place, like thousands of them on a particular prayer day. And there were some beautiful young men, and I gasped at their beauty, and I was rushed behind a bush because they were eunuchs and they were going to become monks. And they said, you can't look at them. You're a woman. You can't look at these young men. They're eunuchs. And I'd never come across them. This whole culture was so rich and so different from anything I'd understood, but they had to quickly sit me down because I just was admiring them. They were just very lovely. But anyway, I'm available on Mummy Advice is a good one, and I'm also available. I coach one-to-one, and I'm on Facebook more than Instagram, but I should be more active on Instagram. Everyone tells me Facebook's gone, but I don't think it has. And I'm Christel Cowdrey, or Christel Cowdrey.
And you're amazing. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Christel. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.
If you want some amazing inspiration, check out the videos next to me, and I'll see you right there.